Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This day in sports history. It's March 13th, and on this day in 1998, it was one of the most iconic shots in the history of the NCAA tournament. We're still about a week away from the tournament getting underway, but today we look back on one of the great first-round upsets in tournament history. It was the third straight appearance for the Valparaiso Crusaders in the NCAA tournament as representatives of the Mid-Continent Conference. Their previous two visits had ended in first-round losses, and as the 13 seed against the 4 seed and 13th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels, that was what was expected in this game. But drawing a bit on their experience of the past two seasons in the Big Dance, the Crusaders hung around and kept the game close throughout. Ole Miss was up only 4 at the half, and with 15 seconds to play in the game, Valpo was down 2 and rebounded a missed Rebel shot. Hustling up the court, the ball wound up in the hands of senior Bryce Drew, and with 7 seconds left, launched a 3 and missed. Ole Miss's Ansu Cisse grabbed the rebound and was immediately fouled with 4.1 seconds on the clock. With Cisse, a 74% free throw shooter on the year, the SEC Player of the Year on the free throw line, Valpo figured they had just missed their opportunity to shake up the world with a first-round upset. Drew dropped his head and grabbed his shorts. The announcers were lamenting the fact that the Crusaders had come so close, and what a heartbreaker to not be able to get it done. The Ole Miss bench showed relief and the belief that they would soon be moving on with a couple of free throws from Cisse, and with the Rebels in the double bonus, one was certain, if not both. But Cisse missed the first, and Crusaders coach Homer Drew called his last timeout to set up a final play. Out of the timeout, the left-handed Cisse clanked the second free throw off the back iron, and the ball was tipped out of bounds by Ole Miss. Now with 2.5 seconds on the clock, Valpo had to go the length of the court. Ole Miss, hoping to avoid Kentucky's mistake in not guarding Grant Hill on the Leitner miracle, they put a guy on the inbounder. Jamie Sykes timed his pass correctly. Bill Jenkins outjumped 2 Rebel players and found Bryce Drew moving towards the arc. Now unguarded, he leaned in and fired from the right wing and nailed the 22-footer as time expired, igniting a furious celebration on the court. The final play was called Pacer, and was actually one they had worked on in practice that season, but Homer said years later that it had never worked so well as it did on this day when his son Bryce, the former high school Mr. Basketball in the basketball-crazed state of Indiana, playing for a mid-major for his dad, hit one of the most iconic shots of March Madness to send Valpo on to round 2. But remember, they weren't done yet. They beat the number 12 seed Florida State Seminoles in the second round to advance to the Sweet 16 before their Cinderella story ended with a loss to Rhode Island. Bryce is now the head men's basketball coach at Grand Canyon University after stints at his alma mater and then Vanderbilt. His Antelopes tip off Friday as the top seed in the WAC tournament, and we might be seeing some more Bryce Drew magic in the NCAA tournament if things go well for the Lopes this week. Also on this day, in 1983, it was a little Jim Valvano magic as his NC State Wolfpack upset the Virginia Cavaliers to win the ACC tournament title. It was an impressive run for the Wolfpack that included a 1-point win against Wake Forest in the first round, an overtime win against the 5th-ranked and defending national champion North Carolina Tar Heels before knocking off Ralph Sampson and the 2nd-ranked Cavaliers. Interesting fact, they had Virginia on the ropes back in January, up 18 at one point in their regular season matchup, but Derek Wittenberg broke his foot in that game, and the Cavaliers came back to win that one. But of course, NC State's run would not stop with their ACC tournament championship. They continued their magical run all the way to the NCAA final, beating Houston and Phi Slamma Jamma to become national champions. A win and a journey that probably would not have happened if a freshly healed Wittenberg and the Cardiac Pack had not beaten Virginia on this day. In 2011, Minnesota Timberwolf Kevin Love scored just 6 points in a loss to Golden State. Now, that's notable because despite grabbing 12 rebounds, it broke his string of double-doubles at 53, which is still the NBA record. And in 1954, the Milwaukee Braves' Bobby Thompson broke his ankle in 3 places in a spring training game. Unfortunate and painful for him, but it opened a spot for a young Henry Aaron to play left field for the Braves that season. And finally, here is today's non-sports Did You Know? The world's largest waterfall is actually underwater. That's all for today. And hey, if you have a moment and you're enjoying the show, how about leaving a 5-star review and a comment on Apple Podcasts? Or if you're not enjoying the podcast, send me an email instead, telling me what I could be doing differently to thrivesuite@gmail.com. That address, along with other things, are in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back tomorrow with more This Dish. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.